All right, happy Friday. Well, today I got to get all of you in there. There we go. Today we're going to go through the Tuttle Twins book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. So this is one of my favorite books, not this one specifically, the one it's based on, written by G. Edward Griffin. So it's about a 600-page book, but it's a phenomenal book. And if you ever really wanted to open your eyes to what's and peek behind the curtain of what's going on with our money in this country in the world, I highly recommend reading The Creature from Jekyll Island. Get it on audiobooks. It's only like 20 hours long. Anyway, so today we get Blake. Today he's usually at school, but the kids don't have school today, so Blake gets to be here for the lesson. So the first thing we want to start with is just a summary. So Jack, why don't you give us a high-level summary of what this book was about?
It was about the Tuttle Twins who went to sell honey at a fair or something. And then Grandpa Tuttle told them like how the creature steals money from them.
Okay.
Then it steals it by taxes.
Okay. Or what else actually from this book?
Well, they make their own money so they can raise the price on stuff.
Okay, so inflation, right? So the rising cost of everything. Good. Bo, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, just the Tuttle Twins, they went to a fair to sell honey. Yes, and then the the kids heard the grandpa talking about the creature from Jekyll Island, like how it was affecting him.
Mm-hmm.
And then so they asked their grandpa what it was, and so basically it's just a big explanation about what it was.
Yeah, good. So that's what we're going to talk about in this lesson. So really the purpose of this lesson is to teach the history and the nature of money, including banking, inflation, and how our currency is manipulated by a little thing known as the creature from Jekyll Island. So we'll figure out what that creature actually is as we go through this. All right, great. Well, so let's just start with some basics. What is money? Blake, what is money?
It's something you use to pay for, to buy stuff for, and you get it back if you pay more than what the price is and stuff.
Okay, you get change back, right? So perfect. It's a medium of exchange, right? That's all you're doing. You're trading paper and you're getting candy in return, right? That's what we usually do, huh? Good. Okay, so what did you learn from the book about how money was invented? Like how currency was invented? What did they used to use for currency, Jack? Like way back before dollar bills and coins were invented.
Like they used to use gold coins.
Okay. Yep, they used gold. And what did they use even before that?
Silver.
What?
They used to use like fish.
Sure.
Isn't it like stuff that they either caught or found?
Yeah. So they would trade one thing for another thing. What's it called when you trade? Like if I just traded you this water bottle for your hat, what would that be called? Bartering. Yeah. So they would barter, right? Everybody had a skill. Maybe their skill was to catch fish, so they would go trade their fish for some rice, so they could have rice with their fish, right? Good. Now, what makes that difficult? What do you remember the example from the book when they said, what if we still used bartering today? What would you exchange for something that you wanted? What did they do in the book? At the fair when they wanted to get tickets, what did they try to do? Go ahead.
They tried to trade a jar of honey for 2 tickets.
Right. So they tried to trade something they had for something that they wanted. Now, what was the problem with that? Say if you are a car salesman and you have a bunch of cars, and you go, like, if you try to trade a car for tickets, that probably wouldn't work too well, right? It wouldn't be a fair trade. So why did we evolve as humans from bartering to like creating a currency, something that we could exchange, like the same thing we could exchange. Like, what were some of the first currencies? You mentioned the bartering example, but do you remember from the book some of the currencies used to be things like seashells,
Yeah.
right? Or salt, or rice? And why did they use those currencies as a medium of exchange?
Be, um,
Go. You don't have to raise your hand. You're not in,
Um,
you're not in class.
because that's their skill. They can catch a lot of their things. They can catch it more for them to have and to trade.
Yeah. So that could be part of it. But what about if if you could get anything you wanted with seashells? That makes it easier to value everything, right? So everybody would price all of their items in a number of seashells or in the weight of salt, right? So then it's uniform. Everybody has the same currency, so it's easier. Okay. Um, Now, Jack, you mentioned gold and silver. Why were those used as a form of currency?
because those are worth a lot.
Yeah, because they're worth. What makes them worth a lot?
Because they're rare.
They're rare. Perfect. So that really feeds into the whole discussion we're going to have about our current currency. Is yeah, gold and silver are worth a lot because there's not very much of it, right? What if there was a ton of gold and silver? What if there was as much gold and silver as there was sand on the beaches?
Then that wouldn't be worth anything.
It wouldn't be worth anything. Why? Because there's so much of it, right? So you add a whole lot of it, and then the worth of all of it becomes less. The individual pieces becomes less, right?
But there's a lot of money. There's a bunch of money, and that's all worth a lot.
Mm-hmm. But what if you add a bunch more money into that pile?
Then
We'll talk about that. Maybe we'll get to it. It'll be a little easier to explain and understand. You're on the right track. I like what you're thinking, Blake. Okay. Did you know that back in like the Roman times, did you know that they used to devalue the currency? Do you know how they did that? So back in those days, they were using the coins, gold coins, to buy everything, right? And you had different weights of gold coins. But the government in Rome at the time decided that they wanted more money to spend on whatever they wanted to spend it on. So what they would do is they would clip the edges of those coins and make them and take off some of the gold from those coins and put all that together and melt it and create more coins. But they try to pass off those ones that they clip the edges off of as having the same amount of value that they had before they clipped them. And then what did people end up doing? What did the citizens do once they realized that? They realized that the value of that was less than it used to be, right? So then what do you think they did with their prices?
Made them higher.
They made their prices higher, right? Because now, instead of it only taking 4 coins to buy a fish, now, because all the coins have been clipped and the value had been taken from them, they made the cost 5 coins to buy a fish. And what that's called is inflation. So I don't have a quarter on me, but do you remember from the book, and if you look at a quarter today, it's got a rigid edge. So you could rub your fingernail over it and feel all the ridges on the quarter. That's what they used to do in Rome. Once the citizens got smart to what Caesar was doing, is they added ridges to the edges so they would know if it got clipped. So that's how they try to maintain the honesty of that currency. One other thing that the government would do in those times is melt down the coins and then mix it with a bunch of other metals that weren't worth anything. So it wasn't pure gold anymore or silver. So it was actually worth less than what people thought it was worth. That way they could create more and more of it and create money out of thin air, really. Which does what? We already talked about. What does that do to prices?
It makes them go up.
Makes them go up. Right. So, and that word, when prices go up, is, do you remember the word? When the prices in the entire economy go up, it's called inflation. Inflation. Oh, Paul says tobacco. Yeah, that was a form of currency, and it still is in prison. Paul, maybe you can confirm that for us. Inflation is what we think of when prices go up. But prices going up is not actually the part that's the inflation. So we'll talk about that. But how does, so what is inflation? Do you know the definition of inflation? It's not actually, a lot of people might think when they hear the word inflation, they think, oh, that just means the cost went up. That's inflation, is when the cost of everything goes up. No, that's the result of inflation. Inflation, which we talked about, using the example from Roman times, is when the currency is devalued and there's more added, right? Because when you add more of something, everything, all the little pieces become worth less, right? Because there's more of it available. Well, just like in Roman times, we have inflation today because the creature from Jekyll Island, what do? They print money, right? They print a lot of brand new money for the economy, which makes the dollar in your pocket worth less every single day that they print more money. So, what is the creature from Jekyll Island?
The government.
Like a few people that are that just, I don't know, make things more pricey and like print money.
So what do they control? You said it. They control money, right? The creature from Jekyll Island is actually the Federal Reserve Bank. So almost everybody has heard of the Fed. If you watch the news or read the news or anything like that, you hear about the Fed this, the Fed that. They're talking about the Federal Reserve Bank, which is also known to a lot of people as the creature from Jekyll Island. And the reason it's called the creature from Jekyll Island is, do you guys remember how it was formed? The Federal Reserve? It was formed over 100 years ago on a little island in a place called Jekyll Island in Georgia. So a bunch of rich and powerful bankers from around the world gathered there and created the Federal Reserve. Now the Federal Reserve is actually the central bank in the US. But guess what? It's called the Federal Reserve Bank. But you know what? Something that a lot of people don't know. It's not federal, which means it's not part of the government. There's no reserves, and it's not a bank. The name Federal Reserve Bank doesn't describe it at all, actually. But that makes everybody feel safe. Do you know what reserves are?
No.
You don't know what reserves are?
A reservation.
No, it means extra. Like something you have extra just sitting there, right? So over 100 years ago, a bunch of powerful men got together, powerful bankers, and they created this Federal Reserve Bank so that they can control all the other banks in the country. So, and what was the Fed given the power to do? I just asked you. What can they do?
Print money.
Print money. They can print money. And they print and print and print and print. Like trillions of dollars this year alone have been printed. Now, if they've printed $1 trillion, what do you think that does to the value of your $10 that you have?
Makes it less.
Makes it less.
Valuable.
It makes it less because
There's more of it.
now you're going to have to use more of those dollars to purchase the exact same thing that you were able to purchase before they printed all that money. Okay? Have you guys heard of the golden rule? Yeah?
Probably.
Jack, what's the golden rule?
Treat others how you want to be treated.
Treat others how you want to be treated. Now, there's another golden rule. It's called that he who has the gold makes the rules. Have you ever heard that one?
Nope.
Yeah, well, guess what? Who has all the money? Who has the gold?
Government.
The Federal Reserve. So they have the money. Who makes the rules in the country?
Government.
The government. Yeah, well, the bankers have the money. They give the money to the politicians. The politicians make the rules. So do you think the politicians want to make rules that go against the bankers or that favor the bankers?
Favor.
Why?
Because they're bankers.
Because that's where they're getting their money, right? So you guys got to think, when you start thinking about our government system and politics and everything like that, you got to look beyond just the face value of what they're doing and think about why are they making that decision. And usually, which is the case in life a lot, if you follow the money all the way back to where it came from, you can find out why somebody made the decision they made. Does the Fed hold more control than the president? That's what Brad is asking. So the president doesn't make laws, right? Congress makes laws. And politicians need money. And if the Fed is able to provide them money, then it's fair to say that the Fed helps make the laws more than the president does. So having the right person as president is important, but realize one person can't control the laws of the country, right? It takes a whole Congress. All right, now here's a little gee whiz. Do you know the dollars that you have in your wallet? That years and years ago, it used to be backed up by gold. We used to have the same amount of gold sitting in a reserve that we had in dollar value out in the country. So we couldn't inflate it, right? We couldn't print more money unless we had more gold. So it would not lose value because it was backed by a precious metal. Well, we decided to go off the gold standard in the 70s. And from then, now the dollar you have in your wallet isn't backed by anything except the full faith of the United States government. Basically, that dollar is an IOU. But there's nothing backing it, so there's no gold backing it. And what that allows is for inflation to rise and rise. Because there's nothing backing it, so they can print money out of thin air, right? That's right. All right. And what do we call that? When money can just be created and then the citizens are required to use that money, use that form of currency. What's the name that we give that currency? You probably don't remember, do you, from the reading? It's called a fiat currency. So that just means we're forced to use it and they can print as much as they want. So we call it fiat money. It's almost kind of like fake money, if you think about it. So let's get to the point of why is this important to know. So Jack, why is it important to understand where, how our money is created and how it's used in our country and in the world?
It is created.
No, just why is it important to understand this?
Oh, so everything, so people don't get confused, in one state, a watermelon would be worth, maybe $5, and then another state would be worth, $10.
Okay. And in some, that's actually the case in some states where the same thing might cost a lot more in one state than the other. And why do you think that is? What does that state add to that item?
Tax.
Taxes, right? But it's important to understand our world and the way money works, the way money's created, the way our currency and our economy operate, so that you can understand better and make better decisions on maybe who you vote for, or getting involved and trying to fix the problem, but also just letting other people know about it, because most people don't know anything about this. I would estimate you guys now know more about the Federal Reserve Bank than 90% of adults my age know. Okay, and that's an important thing. So you guys need to be able to spread what you know to other people and search for the truth, right? You can't just listen to what you hear on TV and accept that as truth. Yeah? So tell me one thing about the Federal Reserve Bank that you learned, Blake.
That it creates money.
Okay, good. Jack, what about you?
And it's not part of the government.
Nope, it's not federal. Bo.
It makes prices of whatever things go up
By doing what?
by
Making
putting
more.
taxes.
By making more.
By
of it.
printing more money, right? Because they add more money to the economy, which means your purchasing power for every dollar is decreased, so you have to use more dollars to buy the exact same thing. Got it? Cool. Fun lesson. Again, I highly recommend reading that full book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It is incredibly eye-opening. Okay, just a second. And then next week we'll be doing this book, The Food Truck Fiasco, all about entrepreneurship, learn about business, regulations, and competition and all that. So thanks for joining. We'll see you next week.